Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and with this being Universal Collision Season 2 premiere week, coming up a little bit later as of this recording, I thought that it was a fine time to actually kind of answer a request from one of you for a video. That being said, this one comes from Marvelous Prime, good friend of the channel, and one of the voices coming up in Universal Collision Season 2, and he asked about a tutorial, so to speak, for doing a chase scene for stop motion animation as well as transformation. Now I'm going to kind of deal with both of them with the help of our good friend and new recruit, Siege Springer.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I'm just the bot behind the man, and you the man. Hey everybody, happy to be here. Hope I can be of some help. Alright, there, I said it. Now can we please get going on the rest of this?
I know, I'm as excited as you are that he's here. I've never animated with Siege Springer, so this is going to be exciting for me as well. Nevertheless, those two topics, chase scenes and transformations, will be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. I'm so happy that you're here today. Please check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors NL, and the Autobot family. And as for here, you can like, comment, share, of course, subscribe them while you're at it. That's right, hit the notification bell because it lets you know when I have new content going up of all sorts. Things like this, for example. Okay, so this one is a little bit different. It's going to sort of be a mix of me here, explaining a few things. I'll show a couple of things, and of course we'll see a little bit of stop motion in the midst of what we're doing here. Now, that being said, I've been asked about two things by Marvelous Prime. Actually, technically it was three things, but one of them I've already done a tutorial on. It was sort of how to film a battle scene, and that one is a little more challenging. The only real piece of advice that I can sort of give here briefly for that is that you need to do choreography for a battle scene. You need to know each movement, each, kick or strike or whatever you're going to do, throw. And you really need to worry about sort of filming one action at a time. A lot of times the easiest thing to do is to film one of the actions, change the camera angle, film the next action, change the camera angle, film the next action. It's definitely the easiest way to go about it. Are there more advanced techniques? Yes, of course there are. Are there better techniques? Yes, of course there are. But if you're a beginner, a novice, maybe just teetering on intermediate, the sort of advice and tips that I give here hopefully at least can get you started in your exploration of stop motion animation. I've talked about a lot of things in the past in different tutorials, such as the How to Fly tutorial. I know what I use, and I know the best way to do it is well done green screening. It's not something I'm familiar with. It's not something I do because I try to keep it as simple as I can to make it as accessible to as many people as I can, young and old, who are just starting out. So, that being said, what can I say when it comes to doing a chase scene? We'll deal with the chase scene first. Well, there's three things to really keep in mind when you do a chase scene. The first is know your physics. Know how a vehicle moves on a road, a dirt road, whatever it is that you're planning to have it drive over. How does a car start up? How does it slow down? How does it turn? You sort of need to know how a vehicle moves in order to animate it, and you need to kind of be able to think through the path that you're looking for it to travel. The second thing that you want to keep in mind is that because you're thinking about the path that it's traveling and the way a car moves, you want to make very, very, very small incremental movements. Now you hear that all the time, but what does it mean? Because a lot of people will move it too fast. In the beginning of your scene, it's probably good to kind of start out with just an environmental, an environmental picture. Have that be your very first picture. That way, the sound of an engine revving in can be used before the vehicle ever appears on screen. Then you can start to bring the vehicle on very small movements to begin with, especially if you're having it just start. That way it's the smaller the movements, the slower the motion, and you can have it look like the vehicle is just starting to roll off into whatever speed it's going. Then you can move it a little bit more in the middle because it's going fast, and when you want it to slow down, you start doing very, very small movements again to slow it down. As well, I would also advise that in the beginning, when you have a vehicle just starting off to move, perhaps you should set those frame rates at a different rate than the middle where it's at full speed and the end where it's slowing down. So, point 1 is know your physics of how a vehicle moves. Point 2 is know how to do the little incremental movements. And point 3 is know how to set the frame rates. The frame rates are going to be the biggest part of this, really. When you start off a vehicle, it's not at full speed. It has to go from 0 to whatever. Well, maybe you want to set your first 10, 15, 20, 25, depending on the vehicle, pictures at a frame rate of, I don't know, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 seconds. The middle ones, when it's at full speed, probably make those around 0.4 to 0.6 seconds. And then the ones where it's slowing down and coming to a stop. Maybe you have a few toward the end that are set at a frame rate of, 0.8, 0.9. And then a few more set at 0.9, 0.10. And the last few at 0.10, 0.11. And when I say point, that's point of a second. So like when I say 0.10, that's a tenth of a second. When I say 0.11, that's an 11th of a second. Usually, depending on the program you use, you're able to set frame rates. I know I can. If you don't have a program where you can change the frame rate, you're going to want a program where you can change the frame rate. So let's sort of see this in action a little bit, if that's okay with you, Springer.
Finally, it's about time. Let's get out of here.
Okay, he's on board. Let's head down to the floor and kind of take a closer look at how this plays out. And boom, by the magic of, me editing, I am now sitting on the floor. And set up over here, I have a little bit of a scene. It's pretty simple, but it's just so we have something for Springer to drive over. And of course, I have Springer. I think you can see him back right there. And that's where he's going to begin. The very first thing I would do is position my camera in such a way that I'm getting a picture of the scene without him in it. Nevertheless, before we get started, I just wanted to ask Springer, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Look, let's just do this thing. I've got better things to do tonight than hang out with you.
He's enthusiastic. Listen, what could you have to do tonight possibly any more exciting than hanging out with me?
Really? You want to jump down that rabbit hole, GotBot? You really want to jump down that rabbit hole? Like, literally anything would be better than spending my night hanging out here with just you. But more to the point, I actually have a date with RC, and I'd like to not be late for it, so let's move this along.
Okay, having a date with RC is probably more exciting than hanging out with me. Nevertheless, I want to thank Springer for being such a champ about letting me do this tutorial for you guys. So, without any further ado, we're going to kind of get into it. I'm sort of going to get out of the way. I am adjusting a light here a little bit to help me. So, I'm going to sort of get out of the way here. And the very first thing that I would do is I would set up for a picture to be taken of about this area. I'm gonna reposition the camera and show you the area that I would start off with. And this is about the area that I would begin with. You'll notice that I don't have anything here in the background. Why? Because I want to have a still image of the environment, and I want it to be the sort of thing that allows us to introduce the sound of an engine, for example, without having to worry about the sounds perfectly matching up with the activity on screen, since we don't have a real vehicle or a real engine necessarily. It depends on how you're making the sounds. But I would start off with something like this. Plus, having an environmental picture taken like this with nothing on it also allows you to kind of do photo layering to edit certain things later on. If you have your hand in it or you want to get something out, you can superimpose what happens within this environment onto this image right here and simply edit things out. It's not the only way to edit scenes and pictures and whatnot, but it is certainly one way of doing it. So I would begin with this as my first picture. I would click it now. That being said, I would begin to slowly now move him in. I'm going to assume that he already was traveling off screen and that he's already, coming close to us at his full speed. So I don't need to start off as if he's just beginning to drive. I can start off as if he's already at full speed. When I do the pictures with him in it, at this point I would have them probably set at about 0.5, 0.6 of a second in order to make it look like he is driving at full speed. So that being said, I'm going to bring him in slightly. Not even that much, I don't think. Let me just take a second to adjust things a little bit here. Okay, so I would probably start him something like that, and I would hit click and take a picture. And then I would bring him in a little bit more, click, take another picture. A little bit more, click, take another picture. You get how this is going. You see how little I'm moving him. I would say a good rule of thumb is do not move him any more than probably a centimeter or 2. It is pretty tedious. It will take several images, but it looks fantastic when it's done. Now, that being said, I don't want to bore you guys by going through every image there. But I'm going to kind of show you how a path might go. In my mind, as I'm moving him, I'm thinking that, okay, I want him to come in and I want him to stop. But he's basically like a sports car. He's going at a high speed, so I want him to move appropriately. So I already have planned out in my mind roughly the sort of path that he's going to take. And as I do each image, I sort of follow that path in my head. So he will come in and basically come in and go something like that. Now he's gone off screen there a little bit, so I would have to adjust my angle for taking the pictures, but you see how he came in and sort of curved over and then came in again. That's how I would do the sort of chase, race, whatever you want to call it. Then we get to the transformation, but we'll get to that in just a second. You will also notice that I have filmed this at a very high angle. I don't want this high of an angle when I actually take the picture. So I'm going to adjust the positioning of the camera and have it lower to the ground. And I think for my purposes, and maybe yours, it will work out better. We shall see, but we will kind of let this sort of settle as the way that you do a chase scene. And we're going to kind of go back to the chair now and let me sort of introduce to you how to do a transformation. Okay, so that's the basics of taking the pictures. You're not worrying about frame rate there, but you do worry about the movements. In the beginning, I made really slow ones. As Springer sped up, I made faster ones. We're going to see kind of the end result a little bit later on. But in conjunction with that, what do you do for a transformation? Well, I'm going to give a shout out here to Eric Tron, who is a great animator. I've seen his early stuff to where he is now, and somebody asked him once the same sort of question, and I really kind of have to agree with what was said there. The transformation does not have to be shown each and every little piece. For example, if you're moving the arms, as long as you can see that the arms are in motion and move from one place to another, that's fine. You don't necessarily need to see how each little hinge moves. But dealing with the transformation, there's really two ways to do it. One, you can try to make it as animation accurate as possible. That's definitely more advanced and more challenging. There's no doubt about it. If you want it to look like the way the, say, cartoon looked, Well, you have to look at the sort of movements that were made and the tricks in animation there that were done to hide certain vehicle pieces along the way. It's certainly doable, but it's a lot harder and definitely more advanced. So what if you just want to kind of come up with your own method of transformation? Look at how the toy transforms. Ask yourself, what are kind of the key pieces here that I would like to include in the animation? Do I need to show, not only how the arms move, but do I need to show the hinge of the arm moving? Really? Do I need to go to that depth? Or can I just show that they flare out to the side, for example? Do I need to necessarily show how legs, completely unfurl? Or can I just show the fact that they do unfurl? If there's accessories involved, do I need to show how they sort of come off, or can I just take them off and they sort of, disappear and reappear? Optimus Prime's trailer did it all the time in G1, man. Why not? So there's little tricks to it. The point I'm getting to is you only need to show enough movement with the transformation so that people can see that there's a transformation going on. You don't need to show every little aspect to it. Obviously, the more you show, the smoother it is. But sometimes you can show a little too much and it makes the transformation drag on, and that's not fun for everybody. So again, we're going to go back to Springer, if he's okay with us going back to him.
Sure, do whatever it is you have to do, cowboy.
Great. And we're going to show his conversion to robot. Who knows? Maybe we'll even do it to helicopter, maybe. Maybe, we'll see. But as you're going to see, I'm not necessarily concerned about showing each and every part of the movement. I'm just concerned about showing the things that I need to be concerned about showing. Okay, so at this point we know that if we're doing a chase scene, we need to consider how a vehicle moves, we need to follow that path, we need to upload our images, and we need to adjust the kind of frame ratio as it works for us and the stop motion scene that we're trying to do. For the transformation, it's a little bit different because we kind of have the freedom, depending on how you're approaching transformation, as I touched on, to kind of do things however we want. Now, I'm not going to try and make this Springer convert the same way that we see on screen. It's not worth it to me. Now, if I wanted to, I could put a lot more effort and detail into it. But, again, for the basics of transformation, we can look at this and find out what moves nicely, what doesn't move nicely, what we want to use and what we want to gloss over. I'm going to take him to robot mode. Now, I'm not going step by step through the transformation because we don't need to do that. I am going to tell you what I would have done, basically, to take photographs of. So the very first thing I would do is begin to move these side pieces out. Why? Because the arms detach easily. I would move them out there. I would move them out more. I would pick these off. They just magically disappeared. I would, again, pick them out more. And I would start to pick up the roof. I would bring the roof a bit forward. I would, again, magically, these pieces disappear. I probably would have been more careful there as not to nudge him. But I would bring that whole thing forward. Then I would begin to kind of bend his body up. Now, if you're anything like me, you realize that the whole kind of hinge for the body is a bit of a nuisance hinge to do. So I begin by helping myself out. In order to sort of mask having to pull that hinge, I untab the arms. Bring this up over more. I split the legs. At this point, I have enough pieces apart and he's in motion enough that I can mask the fact that I'm going to have to sort of pull on the body to get it the way I want it. I would begin to bring up the feet. You'll notice I kind of use the feet to push that roof section ahead again a bit. It was not deliberate, but whatever. I would move him like that. I moved a whole bunch of pieces. Now he's kind of getting up there. At this point, I would kind of come down close. I'd look at that hinge and sort of try and figure out how am I going to get this apart now. And this is one of those hinges that's a bit of a nuisance to do. You'll notice I have him up. Oh no, have I kind of destroyed everything I've done so far? Not in the least, because he's still in the same area and he was already in sort of an open mess to begin with. So those legs, they can come down even more. Going under here, trying to find that hinge. So now that whole body hinge has come out, and I brought these down to the side. I brought that little piece forward. I bring the legs on down. Little does anybody know at this point that the legs really are done. I work on bringing the chest piece out, the back piece up over, the head starting to come out, the head all the way out, setting up the arms, bringing the head up, angling the arm sections up, starting to bend the knees. Right now he's supported on his knees and on his hands. Push the body up so that now he is even more on his knees with his body kind of forward. Push him totally up on his knees. Fold those pieces of his shoulder down. Start to bring, oh, he fell over. Start to bring a knee forward. Start to bring a knee forward. And I'm trying to find a balance. Now he's on one knee. Open out the arms. Start to bring the other knee forward. Stand him up. You'll notice he's not stood up straight. Good enough to get a picture. He may fall, but you already got your picture. Stand him up even more. And now at this point you should be able to begin manipulating him to get him in a stance that you want him in. That was a whole bunch of what looked like a mess. But at strategic points there, I'm taking pictures. As I put these together, I'll have them at a frame rate of probably 0.7, 0.8, maybe roughly around there. I will also have transitions between each frame because the transitions will help to make that mess look like a smoother transformation. Remember as well, the whole thing, though it took me a couple of minutes there, the whole thing will only take a few seconds, if that, a second, on screen. And in that second, that's when you can kind of trick the eye into seeing things moving the way that the eye wants to see them moving. And honestly, that's really about it. It's not a whole lot to it. It's patience. It's taking a lot of pictures. It's removing the pictures, the frames that don't work, because just because you take the picture doesn't mean you have to use every frame. And it's keeping the frames that do work and the camera angles that do work, so that in the end you can have something that flows very nicely. Okay, so now that we have all of our, pictures taken for the I guess the chase sequence, the driving sequence, and the transformation, we can put them into our program. We could set the frame rates for the transformation, because I already talked about setting the frame rates for the driving scene. For the transformation, usually I like to set them at somewhere around 0.7 or so and set transitions between frames. That's what works for me. Sometimes, depending on the character, it changes. But as a general rule, about 0.6 to 0.8 of a second for each picture works pretty nicely for a transformation. In the end, after you've set all of your frame rates and you put it all together, it should look something like this.
Ta-da, and there you have it. The whole thing done. Finished product. Okay. Are we done here now or what? Yeah, we're done. We're done. I'm on the way, RC. No more having to wait on your DreamBot. Bye, Springer. I'll miss you, man. We sure had some fun times.
And there you have it. That's really quick, but it lets you know sort of the pictures you should take, the steps that you should take. I've even talked about the sort of frame rate speeds that you should have. And in the end, you should end up with something that looks something like that. Obviously, as time goes on and you get better, your skills will get better. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Keep working at it and never stop learning. There's the takeaway. Anyway, I hope it's been some help. If you have any pointed questions, of course, hit me up. Ask me anything you want to ask me in the comments. I'll do the best I can to help you guys along. You know that I love to hear from you guys, and I love it when you stop by to have a little visit. I appreciate you giving me some of your extremely valuable time. Again, I'm going to say, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out so very much. If you're in a position to help the channel, there's a donation link down in the description, and I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit right here, either in the live streams or inside the videos.